Nigeria didn't just happen in 1914, it was bought and sold. Do you know that before 1914 there was no Nigeria? Just hundreds of independent kingdoms, cultures, and peoples living freely on their own terms. If you didn't know that, subscribe to Afri Untold right now, because this is the story that explains everything about modern Nigeria. Imagine a single signature on a piece of paper in London, completely erasing the borders of hundreds of independent kingdoms overnight. No consultation, no permission, no vote. Just a pen stroke that created a country, not for the people living there, but for the empire that owned them. Lord Lugard was the British administrator who made it happen. His reason had nothing to do with building a great nation. The British were spending too much money managing two separate protectorates, Northern Nigeria and Southern Nigeria. Merging them would save money. That is it. That is the entire reason Nigeria exists. On January 1st, 1914, Northern and Southern Nigeria were officially amalgamated into one territory. The people living there were not asked. The kings and chiefs who had governed their communities for centuries were not consulted. A decision made in London created the most populous black nation on earth, and nobody who lived there had any say in it. The problem was that the North and South were not just different regions. They were effectively different countries. The North was predominantly Muslim, governed through Islamic structures, landlocked with different laws and social systems. Its people spoke Hausa and Fulani. Its identity was ancient and deeply rooted. The South was predominantly Christian and traditional religion, had access to the Atlantic coast, had been trading with Europeans for centuries, and had developed completely different political and economic structures. Its people spoke Yoruba and Igbo and hundreds of other languages. Forcing these two worlds together was like forcing two neighbors who speak different languages and have completely different rules to share one house forever. The British didn't even govern the two halves the same way after merging them. In the North, they used indirect rule, keeping existing traditional rulers in place as colonial puppets. In the South, they imposed more direct control. They created one country with two completely different systems running inside it. The structural imbalance this created would haunt Nigeria for the next century. Follow the money and everything becomes clear. The North had vast land and potential resources, but no way to export them. It was landlocked, cut off from international markets. Left alone, it would struggle economically for generations. The South had ports. The South had trade routes. The South had infrastructure built through centuries of Atlantic commerce. The British needed the North's resources to reach international markets through the South's ports. The amalgamation was a logistics decision. They created a country to serve an empire, not to serve the people. The communities forced together in 1914 had never chosen each other. Northern leaders and Southern leaders now had to operate within one colonial system, despite having completely different visions for their people. The tensions that were planted in 1914 grew slowly, but they grew. Then World War I arrived, the same year as the amalgamation. The newly created Nigeria was immediately pulled into a global conflict that had nothing to do with its people. The British mobilized Nigerian men to fight in the Cameroons campaign against German colonial forces. Nigerians died in a European war in the same year their country was created without their permission. Nigerian soldiers fought and died for a British empire that had just erased their kingdoms with a pen stroke. The colonial administration that had bought and sold their homeland now asked them to bleed for it. History has rarely produced a more painful irony. The structural imbalance of 1914 never healed. As Nigeria developed under colonial rule, the North and South grew in different directions. Different educational systems, different economic opportunities, different political expectations. The British had created one country, but two Nigerias were developing inside it. If you want to understand the Nigerian Civil War of 1967, the Biafra crisis that killed millions, you have to start here in 1914. The tensions that exploded in 1967 were planted in the decisions made in London 50 years earlier. One pen stroke in 1914 set the stage for one of Africa's deadliest conflicts. Nigeria was not built, it was manufactured. For profit, for convenience, for empire. The miracle is not that Nigeria has problems. The miracle is that Nigeria is still standing. Do you know stories like this? Subscribe to Afri Untold for more forgotten Nigerian stories every week. These stories deserve to be told.